Welcome back, Nerglings. Today we are taking a look at my heavy-hitting units like Centaurs, Minotaurs and characters. But before we start, be sure to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss an update. So, on to the Centaurs, with a varied bunch of models from Citadel, Raupatha and Grenadier. All made from metal, save for my rather splendid conversion of the drummer that I made from half a metal pink horror and half a plastic farmyard animal. But what are the Centaur? In Greek mythology, they were creatures with the upper body of a human and the lower body and legs of a horse, as wild as any untamed horse. They were said to have inhabited the region of Magnesia and Mount Pelion in Thessaly, the Pholoe oak forest in Elis, and the Malayan Peninsula in southern Laconia. Centaurs are subsequently featured in Roman mythology and were familiar figures in the medieval bestiary, and they remain a staple of modern fantastic literature today. The Centaurs were usually said to have been born of Ixion and Nephili. As the story goes, Nephili was a cloud made into the likeness of Hera in a plot to trick Ixion into revealing his lust for Hera to Zeus. Ixion thus seduced Nephili, and from that relationship Centaurs were created. Another version, however, makes them children of Centaurus, a man who mated with the Magnesian mares. Centaurus was either himself the son of Ixion and Nephili, inserting an additional generation, or of Apollo and the nymph Stilbe. In the latter version of the story, Centaurus's twin brother was Lapithes, ancestor of the Lapiths. Another tribe of centaurs was said to have lived on Cyprus. According to Nonnus, they were fathered by Zeus, who, in frustration after Aphrodite had eluded him, spilled his seed on the ground of that land. Unlike those of mainland Greece, the Cyprian centaurs were horned. There were also the Lamian Fears, 12 rustic demons of the Lamos River. They were sent by Zeus to guard the infant Dionysos, protecting him from the machinations of Hera. Next up, we have my pride and joy, a mighty bull-headed Minotaur standard bearer. He is obviously based on the superior original conversion by John Blanche, and is quite a character indeed. His standard is a photomanipulation of the Mona Lisa, because, let's face it, I couldn't replicate that for the life of me. With an evil sun looming behind her and the classic checkerboard effect surrounding it. His compatriots are an unwholesome mix of Midlam miniatures, my favourite Minotaur miniatures available anywhere today, and, of course, classic Citadel. To give them a slightly more chaotic feel, some of them have various mutations such as skull heads, griffin's claws, bestial visages, and the champion of the second unit even boasts his own snotling familiar. The Minotaurs are a vicious race of powerful doom breeds, half man and half bull. They stand many feet taller than a regular man and boast a constitution and size that simply dwarfs their distant cousins, the Beastmen. Revered as the mighty defenders of labyrinths and ancient citadels, the Minotaur stood out across ancient literature as a staple mythological beast. After ascending the throne of the island of Crete, Minos competed with his brothers as ruler. Minos prayed to the sea god Poseidon to send him a snow-white bull as a sign of the god's favour. He was to sacrifice the bull to honour Poseidon, but owing to the bull's beauty, he decided instead to keep him. Minos believed that the god would accept a substitute sacrifice. However, to punish Minos, Poseidon made his wife, Pasiphae, fall in love with the bull. Pasiphae had the craftsman Daedalus fashion a hollow wooden cow which he climbed into in order to mate with the bull. The monstrous Minotaur was the result. Pasiphae nursed the Minotaur, but he grew in size and became ferocious. As the unnatural offspring of a woman and a beast, the Minotaur had no natural source of nourishment, and thus devoured humans for sustenance. Minos, following advice from the oracle at Delphi, had Daedalus construct a gigantic labyrinth to hold the Minotaur in his palace at Knossos. The Minotaur is commonly represented in classical art with the body of a man and the head and tail of a bull. According to Sophocles' Tractii, when the river spirit Aeschylus seduced Danae, one of the guises he assumed was a man with the head of a bull. From classical antiquity through the Renaissance, the Minotaur appears at the centre of many depictions of the labyrinth. Ovid's Latin account of the Minotaur, which did not describe which half was bull and which half was man, was the most widely available during the Middle Ages, and several later versions show a man's head and torso on a bull's body, the reverse of the classical configuration, reminiscent of a centaur. The centaur's half-human, half-horse composition has led many writers to treat them as liminal beings, caught between the two natures they embody in contrasting myths. They are both the embodiment of untamed nature, as in their battle with the Lapiths, and conversely, teachers like Chiron. The most common theory holds that the idea of centaurs came from the first reaction of a non-riding culture to nomads who were mounted on horses. The theory suggests that such riders would appear as half man, half animal. A note on centaurs. Here we have Carrick Clovenhoof, a legendary beast lord in his own right, a mythical centaur, half centaur and half beastman. He gallops into battle on flaming hooves, trampling his foes underneath his bulk. I decide to give him a bold red colour scheme to make him stand out from the rest of the troops in the army, in order to make him something of a centrepiece. Moving on, we have some fierce Chaos Hounds. Nothing particularly special here, just the standard set of metal hounds with a simple conversion for the Hellhound champion. I gave him an extra head. Wolves and hounds flock to the fields of battle, drawn by the scent of blood and the promise of flesh. They are the ultimate creatures of opportunity, attacking foes they can easily overwhelm whilst ignoring those that are clearly too tough or dangerous an opponent. After all, why attack heavily armed knights when a flank attack on some lightly armoured bowmen will suffice? On to the Harpies. I have a group of 3 sculpts, 2 female and 1 male. I imagine Harpies, much like their Chaos Hound allies, would pester the weak and exposed flanks of their enemies. Archers, artillery crew and supply wagons would be perfect victims for their attentions. attacking their foes from up high with tooth and claw. Next up we have the Ungor, the smaller kin of the Gor. I have a skirmishing force of 10 individuals armed with spears and shields. I actually painted this lot about 10 years ago, however have only now got around to basing and varnishing them properly. Ungor, which means not quite right gore, other gore, not gore, or no horns, are not as strong, tough, intelligent or robust of frame as the Gor, but they more than make up for it in sheer malevolence. For all intents and purposes, they are chaotic pan, goat-like creatures with evil spirits. Ungor are equal in size to men, and typically feature the hooves of a goat, yet possess a human-shaped face. They are physically smaller than other beastmen, and their horns are less impressive and less numerous. Within the violent hierarchy of the Beastmen tribes, the Ungor are a pathetic and lowly breed that stands among the lowest classes of Beastmen society, only surpassed by the unlucky Turnskins and Brays. They serve as workers, foot soldiers, and resentful victims to the brutish whims and bullying of their larger brethren, the Gor and Bestigor. Due to this, they can never truly occupy the higher echelons of their tribe, and are forever forced to live a life of poverty and suffering. A miserable state that is low for even the foulest of beastmen. This is what feeds their murderous intent. Onwards and upwards, Gorthor on his great chariot is next. I'm not a fan of the original chariot, nor its weird tusked boar, so I thought I would make a chariot that truly adds to Gorthor's old hammer credentials. Being a 90s sculpt, he is metal. However, plastic boars and a rather bland chariot and driver don't lend themselves well to a proper Beast Lord. So I swapped the chariot sides for the Goblin King's chariot sides and sourced 2 well-informed metal boars to pull the thing. To top the whole ensemble off, I added a brave goblin driver. The penultimate creature I would like to show you is my Jabberwocky. No, it's not a Jabberslice, because there's no such thing. This is a Jabberwocky, a creature of mysterious origins. Brutish and uncivilized to the extreme, the Jabberwocky is a monster of unmatched size and strength in my army. A veritable battering ram of muscle and stupid rage. Its knobbly, spined hide can turn away even the sharpest of blades, whilst its huge forearms drag its hefty frame forwards, spitting acid from its maw as it does so. Finally, but certainly not least, is my Vermin Lord. Although I wouldn't class it as a Vermin Lord as such, more like a greater demon of beasts, whatever that might be. I figured as I had a selection of Skaven in the army, and whilst all the other great powers have their own greater demons, that the Beastmen should be no different. In steps the Vermin Lord. A great old school model, he stands head and shoulders above his contemporaries, dwarfing even Gorthor himself in sheer size. Well, that's just about all I have for you today. Join me next time for some more wargaming content. Thanks very much for watching. Peace.